One of the keys to succeeding in F1 Manager 2024 is to develop your car, making it more competitive throughout the season. This is true no matter whether you start your career as one of the 10 current teams or create your own team. Every team will bring upgrades throughout the year, so in order to keep up and progress, you must do the same. But where should you start with car development and what upgrades should you develop first? In this video, I'm going to look at car development, how to do it well, and give you a few top tips. So just how does car development work in F1 Manager? Well, it's a multi-stage process, and the systems are much more realistic than those in other games such as F1 24. First, you have to design new parts that you wish to create, and then manufacture them before you can start using them during a race weekend. The design screen has many options. In the middle, you'll see the remaining development hours, and these hours reset at the start of every new ATR period, which is a predefined amount of time. This limits how much development each car can undergo at various parts during the season. Now, I'd always advise using all of your development hours before the end of the ATR period, otherwise you will lose them. They do not roll over to the next period. Once you've designed a new car part, you then need to manufacture it before you can start using it, and this takes an additional amount of time but is completely separate from your development hours. You'll have to decide how many parts you wish to make. These decisions will affect how long the manufacturing time is and how much it costs. If you wish to use the new part on both cars, you must manufacture at least 2 parts. Remember though that if the car gets damaged during a race weekend, you're going to need spares. For example, if one driver breaks a front wing, you will need a spare to replace it. So if you want the new part on both cars and 1 spare for each driver, that's now 4 parts you need to manufacture. Factoring in the design and manufacturing process, the time needed to get a part from the start of the process to being installed on your car can often be around 30 to 50 days. I usually use the rule of thumb of designing a new car part around 40 days before I actually need it. This gives around 25 to 30 days for the design process and 10 to 15 days to manufacture it. You can rush new parts, but it's not always a wise financial decision as it can cost significantly more. Now, there are 3 key stages of part development, and the first one is analysing your car performance. This stage is vital to understanding how your car performs and how it stacks up against the other teams. The car tab will quickly show you where your car stands in terms of performance in various areas. The bars on the right of the screen indicate which parts of your car are competitive and which aren't, and where you're placed in the field. If you delve further into the car analysis screen, you can compare the car in more detail. You can also see how your car compares to other teams, and you can see a more detailed breakdown of each part. This is useful if you're looking to compete against a specific rival or benchmark your performance against a competitor. Once you're done comparing against other teams, you can utilize the calendar to see how well your car is expected to perform at upcoming races. When you look at each upcoming race, you can see the parts of your car that are most important for that specific track. For example, Monza relies heavily on high-speed cornering, meaning that if your car excels in this area, you're more likely to have a faster car at this track. This is useful when deciding which parts to design. You can look for batches of tracks with similar characteristics and develop an upgrade that will benefit all of those tracks. Remember that the lead time for designing and manufacturing parts can be around 40 days on average, so this will dictate how late you can start developing new parts if you want that part on your car for a specific track. Once you've decided on the parts you're going to develop, go to the design screen, and this is where we can start the second part of the process. This screen quickly shows how each part of your car affects performance. Your front wing and underfloor both have big impacts on your car's entire performance, including low, medium and high speed cornering. More specific parts such as the suspension and rear wing will be less impactful to your performance, so I'd advise against developing those areas first. Try to remember back to the analysis and which areas of your car need work and the upcoming races you're aiming for. Clicking into any specific car part will bring you to the much more complex design screen. The first part of designing is assigning the amount of CFD and wind tunnel hours you wish to use. I did touch on this earlier, but you do only get a certain number of development hours you can use. You can use all of your time on a single part for one really big upgrade, or split it between different parts which all have smaller performance gains. I much prefer to develop 1 or 2 parts during each ATR period. This makes it easy to assign development hours as you can split them exactly in half for each new part. The fewer hours you use, the less impactful your new part's going to be. Now the second part of the design process will allow you to fine tune how you wish to design each part and which areas to focus on. You'll also see the exact effect that will be had on your performance, along with weight changes and the expected lifespan for that part. Adjusting the sliders on this screen allow you to focus your development on specific areas. If you need more cooling, you can focus on that to improve durability throughout a season at the expense of less performance gain. When adjusting these sliders, I recommend choosing the weak areas of your car, as each car is going to be different. You also have the decision of adjusting that lifespan. Increasing this will again reduce the performance, but can make parts last longer. I would actually recommend lowering this for every new part you design. Lower lifespan will increase your performance gain, which is the main reason we're developing parts in the first place. By the time your new part comes to the end of its life, you're more than likely going to have redesigned it. Now, design expertise is a feature that tracks the expertise of your engineers. The higher this number is, the better performance gain you'll have with each new part designed. Your team will have different levels of expertise for each different car part, and it's increased by designing new parts. The more time your engineers spend designing car parts and the more parts they design, the higher the expertise is going to be for that specific car part. If you plan on playing multiple seasons, it can be beneficial to try and increase this expertise early. This can be done by assigning more development hours to a project and spending more money to improve its approach. Opting for the intense option will increase the cost, but it will improve your engineer's expertise much quicker. In the shorter term, this approach can elongate your development and cost more money. However, with higher expertise in your second or third seasons, you'll be able to get better performance boosts from each new design project. Now, with your new car parts analysed and designed, the final step is to manufacture them. This is the least complex part of the whole process, and the decision on how many parts to manufacture and how fast to complete each part is generally a cost decision. You can rush the process, but doing so will increase the cost. There is a cost cap in F1 Manager 2024 for each season, which limits how much money you can spend each year. Staying under this cost cap is vital, meaning any increase in spending can be a big problem further down the line. I wouldn't recommend rushing too many new parts, as the extra cost doesn't really outweigh the benefit of gaining the new part 1 or 2 races sooner. Now, one really good tip for manufacturing is to actually delay it. Instead, design a couple of new iterations for the same part and then manufacture it. This can save a lot of money and reduce the amount of new parts you're creating and essentially wasting. Manufacturing new parts can be expensive, with parts costing up to $500,000, so manufacturing one of these parts for each car will set you back $1 million each time you do it. Therefore, if you complete 2 versions of the front wing in the design phase and then manufacture it, you can save that cost to be spent elsewhere. And this will round out our guide to car development in F1 Manager 2024. This is a really important part of the game to master, as it can drastically improve your performance throughout a season when approached correctly. Let me know in the comments below if I've missed any tips or if there's any approach that you take to designing new car parts. And if you found this video useful, consider hitting that like button. I'm going to head straight back into F1 Manager, and I will see you guys on track.